Welcome to the Pivotal Pod, a conversation between two watchmakers about all things watch related. My name is Tomas, and next to me is Theren, my partner in crime.
In episode 0, we're gonna introduce our backgrounds, what we do, what experience we have, and our life stories. And then kind of introduce what we want to do in this podcast in terms of the segments that we have, what they are, all the things that kind of interest us that we want to talk about. Let's start with you, Thomas. How did you start in watchmaking? What's your watchmaking story?
So my name is Tomas Jambor. I come from Slovakia.
Okay. Where's that?
Well, don't ask.
For the people that don't know.
If you don't know, don't ask.
Yeah, we both come from countries that might be confusing to people.
Yeah. But it's Slovakia. It's a little country in the middle of the Europe. Yeah, and my parents, they own a jewelry store there, and that's where I grew up. I remember I was working in a workshop. When I was young, I spent a couple of summers there. Mm-hmm. Then I started to sell watches.
Okay, so you guys sell jewelry and watches?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we sell both.
Gotcha.
It's kind of common in Europe to sell both at the same time.
Okay.
So, but my parents are both jewel makers, so they actually produce their own jewelry as well as sell other people's jewelry. I always wanted to do something like them. Yeah. But not exactly the same thing. So I decided to go for watchmaking.
All right.
Because it's still in a workshop a little bit.
Right.
You still use sort of the same tools, but not really.
Okay.
It's similar tools.
Does it have to do with anything with how you guys need a watchmaker in the workshop? Or it's just kind of, you just wanted, you were just
I wanted to do it. Like, we didn't really need a watchmaker back then. It was a different kind of business. Okay. Now we're sort of shifting towards more watchmaking oriented stuff. But it wasn't there when I was young. Okay. And so I was able to find a Swiss watchmaking school, Korpela&Hoff Watchmaking Competence Center.
Oh, I know that school.
You know that. It rings a bell, right?
Very, very nice
that's
school. Prestigious.
Yeah, really good. But it's a really good school. So that's where we met. We did...
Wow, that's where I heard of that school. Yeah, I went there.
Went there.
Right. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, right. So, we met there. And I think we did tester course or the bench test at the same time. Yep. I think that's where we met.
Yep, I remember that day.
Then we had to wait for like a year to actually enter the school. Right.
I mean, the program lasts 2 years.
Right.
And they were 1 year into their program. So
I think it was like a year, maybe slightly less. I don't remember exactly. But after we did that for 2 years. That's how we become good friends.
I guess.
You tolerate me, I guess. Right. So after those 2 years, I went to Prague.
Right. We went our ways. You went your way. I went mine.
Right.
You went to Prague.
I went to Prague. I did. I went there for 1 year. Mm-hmm. Then I left Prague. Went to Slovakia to my workshop, to my jewelry store.
Okay.
Yeah. I spent 2 years there.
Right.
I established my own workshop.
Nice.
I set up all the machines and then I got called back from Prague.
Okay. The same store.
The same store, yeah.
Okay. How long were you there the first?
1 year.
First time. Okay.
1 year. And then they called me back and they got me a really good offer. So I moved back to Prague and I was there for 3 years.
3 more years.
3 more years. Okay. So this would be 1 plus 2 plus 3, 6 years after the graduation. Okay. From Henry Korpela School.
Right.
And and after 3 years in Prague, I
got recruited.
Oh yeah, got recruited here.
Even more prestigious.
So that was like a half a year ago.
Right.
I started to work in Canada with you.
Yeah. Okay.
So how about you? What was your experience?
I had no experience with watchmaking or anything related. I went to college. I studied environmental science, actually.
Environmental science. Okay.
But I've always liked working with my hands, and that's kind of how I chose environmental science or the science field, because I liked working in labs. I always interned during the summers, like during off school time, and did like lab work because I just really liked working with my hands. And one summer I took a bunch of, craft courses, kind of like silver smithing, leather craft, and I really enjoyed it. So I, at the same time, kind of got interested in watches from like magazines and reading Hodinkee.
Oh.
And then I thought maybe I could, combine these two interests. And so I looked into how watches were made, how you become a watchmaker. And then I found our school,
Right.
KHWCC, and thought I would just apply and see what happens. And since I had time, we had to wait a year, like you said. I just went for the bench test. We both got accepted.
Yeah, we met there.
2
We
years.
had some fun for 2 years.
Oh yeah, good old the Lochla.
Oh yeah, it was nothing to do other than watchmaking.
But yeah,
And
no,
a
that
lot
was those were good times. I really enjoyed it.
I did as well. A lot of antique fairs.
Oh yeah, flea markets.
We could really nerd out about machines and.
Oh yeah. And then after school, got a job here in Toronto. It was actually because of Brad, our classmates, or not really classmates, the class before us. Brad and Charles are all both Canadian watchmakers from the previous class, and Brad kind of introduced me to the company he was working for, and got me in. I kind of hopped around Canada in the
Works?
jobs. Yeah.
But always staying in Toronto, right?
Yeah. So I've been here 8 years. I've worked at a service center or after sales center, I guess, doing multi-brands. I've worked at LVMH, big company, but at their service center.
Right.
And then I worked with Brad and Charles at their independent company. They started a company themselves.
So wait, but before Brad, you did like a boutique watchmaker, or
No.
was it more like a?
So before Brad, I was at LVMH. So that was LVMH service center. I never had to deal with clients basically.
Right. Which,
Until
sometimes
now.
it's fun, sometimes it's, a little stressful.
Right. So after working with Brad and Charles, now I'm at a,
Right.
private jeweler, and you deal with clients.
What did you do with Brad and Charles?
Mostly made the hands for them. They had pretty sick hands for their watch.
Because you made them.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say that, but that's one big reason. Yeah, they were 3-piece hands. Really interesting. Very much more involved than you would think a hand would be.
No, for me, like the hand making, the whole process, it's really complex and really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's my watchmaking career so far. But
Nice.
yeah, tell me.
That's a quite career.
But tell me, why a podcast? Why are you planning, or why are we starting a podcast? Because this
Right.
was all your idea to start with.
So my whole life, everyone kept telling me that I have a perfect face for radio. So,
Oh, jeez. So you're telling me you've been lied to your whole life. All right.
Since this is not really a visual medium. Right? No, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoy listening to podcasts. I listen to quite a few, and I started actually in school when I was in school.
Okay.
We had a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it helped me focus when I was listening to first music, but then the music got kind of repetitive.
Right.
Because I don't really have a huge imagination with, so I kept listening to the same albums, of the same artists, and then after 2 months, I was going crazy.
Right.
So I started to listen to podcasts, first audiobooks and then podcasts, and basically the whole idea came around a couple months back, but I think I was sort of playing with the idea ever since I started to listen to the podcast. But I feel like I really enjoy our company.
Right.
And I feel like we have really good chemistry. So I want to kind of build the whole podcast on that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what is your goal then for this podcast? Like what do you want to achieve in this podcast?
Right. I don't know if there's anything I want to achieve.
Yeah.
I want to have a little bit of fun with you. I want to
Right.
discuss some interesting topics to me,
Yeah.
especially like watch related stuff, and
Right.
it can be anything technical,
Mhm.
which either of us is working on,
Right.
or it can be something from history,
Right.
some old story we heard,
Mhm.
or if we want to discuss some new development somewhere.
Right.
I basically want to talk to you about watches.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, this podcast, listening to watch related podcasts that are out there, I don't seem to have heard any or many technical ones.
Right,
They're mostly, discussions about new products or like interviews with,
True.
known, famous people in the industry, which is also interesting. I feel like there's a market, I guess, for the more technical stuff.
Yeah.
And since we're both watchmakers, I thought, yeah. When
I
you
feel like there
when
is
you asked
not.
me,
I feel like there is not just market, but I feel
Right.
like there is also like a demand for these kind
Yeah.
of things. And also for me, like what I wanna bring into the podcast, it's sort of lightheartedness.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
of course, when we wanna go like into technical stuff, we can be
Mhm.
as specific as we want to be.
Right,
But as well, I wanna have some fun.
yeah,
Have, make it, because everything you find, like from the competitors, it's sort of dry.
Competitors might not be the word, but
Probably
yeah.
not, but one
But
day
we're
maybe.
gonna kick all their asses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's all dry. It feels like you're reading news,
Right.
and there's no personality inserted in those.
yeah,
And I feel like that's a shame. Like there's a lot of interesting people we know from the watchmaking industry
Mhm.
that could be really interesting to know them closely.
What we have planned in this podcast, we're splitting it into a couple different segments.
Right.
The names of the segments are still kind of a work in progress.
Yeah, we might change them
Yeah.
as we go on.
Right. But the main one we really like is
Yeah.
called On the Bench, which is basically a segment about, what we've been working on recently, what's on our bench currently, something we find interesting that we want to share
Yeah.
with the listener or with each other, or something we've seen that is very peculiar, or maybe even stuff that we fix. We found a really good fix for a problem, and we just want to share, right?
If any of our fellow watchmakers are listening to, and if they have something interesting, feel free to reach out. We will definitely try to cover it.
We can either cover, or if you have different ways of doing the same thing that we discussed,
Oh yeah.
bring that up. It's always interesting to hear.
I love to
we
hear stories about other watchmakers doing stuff differently.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's always interesting to
There's
learn.
always different paths to the same result.
And sometimes different results.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what we want, but
Well.
yeah.
Right, so that will be the first one. Then we have myths and legends.
All right.
And that one is basically telling parts of the history of watchmaking.
Okay.
But since not everything is well documented, it's called myths and legends simply because not everything we don't have a straight answer to.
Right. Not everything
questions
is
we're asking.
factual. It
Right.
might be theories, or it might be
Right.
kind of legend.
Right, and also everything is like a lot of things are sort of bound by industry secrets,
Right.
which we can be guessing, and we are probably right.
Right.
But there's no like written.
But it'll be interesting nonetheless to discuss.
Oh yeah.
We have tools of the trade,
Right.
which would be tools that watchmakers use or like but don't use.
Collect. Look at.
Yeah, collect dust on their shelves.
We love
that are
tools.
interesting. Yeah, we're both toolaholics,
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess.
Oh, yeah.
Addicts, tool buying,
Something
like
about-
most watchmakers, I would say. But in this segment we would discuss tools, their uses, how they're used, why they were made maybe. And,
Anything that's tool related, I would say.
Yeah.
Like some week it can be microscopes, other week it can be lamps,
Right.
next week it can be lathes.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
and everything in between.
I think our teacher Henrik said in Sweden, watchmakers are called profession with 1,000 tools or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
in Swedish.
And that's the thing. Like it keeps gaining more and more. Like every time we find a problem, we'll try to make a tool to solve the problem.
Right. There's a tool for every problem.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
So the next segment would be explained, where we try to explain the difference between different terms used in the industry. For example, what's the difference between a chronometer and chronograph? What's the difference between polishing and cleaning? And those kind of ideas.
So like some terms that are maybe easily confused.
Yeah.
With
They sound
others.
similar, but they're not really the same.
Yeah.
And they sometimes they have completely different meanings. Sometimes it's very, very similar meaning. So
Right.
it's kind of confusing for some people.
Yeah. And in the segment, we would also like to explain maybe like stuff that maybe only people in the industry know about, that maybe for the normal watch enthusiasts are something that they never heard of or never really knew existed.
What like what, for example?
For example, in an episode we will talk about training, like watchmakers training, what that entails, what systems each brand have that
Right.
kind of explain all the whole process. Lastly, we have food for thought, a segment where we talk about maybe recent findings, recent articles or news that we read that we find interesting that we'd like to share with each other, industry news or
Anything we want to talk to each other about.
just an open discussion on everything.
Okay, so that was that. Thank you for listening, and hope you liked the episode.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe at the Pivotal Pod on Instagram, and if you have questions or comments or
Any suggestions? Basically, it's the pivotal pod at gmail.com. You can hit us there, and even if you liked something or didn't like something,
let us
feel
know.
free.
If you said something wrong, if Thomas offended you, just let us know.
That happens sometimes.
We'll cut him out, and All right, peace.